In the old time, there was a king who lived with his wife, the queen and his daughter with red hair. The king loved his daughter and told her the most beautiful stories he went through in hunting the big bears and deer, and Asile was enjoying her. But her mother's mother was opposed, as she was preserving the teaching of the royal protocol, while the king was teaching his daughter to shoot and fight with the sword. The king lived with his family in Hana. Asile enlarged and became a beautiful girl, and she has 3 young brothers. But Asile had a problem, which is that her queen's mother increased her teaching the kingdom's affairs and the protocol matters, so she did not find breaths or escaping except when she takes her horses and goes to the forest to hunt or swim in the river, and expresses her anger by talking to her horse and tells him what she passes with. One day, on the royal food table, the king and the queen in front of him sitting, and on their side of the 3 sons. Asile entered them and sat at the food table, and started telling what she went through on her small journey and the scenes she saw. The maid entered a tray with 3 covers of letters that came specifically for the queen. The queen began to read and smile on her face. Asile asked about the secret of this happiness, and she told her that the 3 rulers adjacent to their country had agreed to visit them and celebrate them. Asile asked, "Why is this celebration?" The queen replied, "For the sake of competition for your sermon." Asile was shocked and began to scream on her mother, but the queen answered her that this is her duty as a princess. But Asile did not agree to her words, went to her room and started screaming and broken in the pots in her room. Her mother followed her to explain to her that this is necessary for the future of the kingdom and the future of the ruling family to strengthen the political, economic, and military relationship. But Asile does not want to understand all this because she wants a marriage in which love is love. The rulers of the neighboring kingdoms came with many gifts, and the king's king received them warmly in a large hall, and he prepared for them all the food, and from the dessert is its best, and from the drinking drink. Every ruler began reviewing what he brought to the bride, and offering all the accomplishments of his eldest son to defeat and confront the enemies, and the audience clapped with warmly and the cries of the place. In Asile's room, the maids and mother are standing near her, giving her advice in order to choose the appropriate groom, but Asile does not want from the depths of her heart. She and the queen came to the reception hall, where the celebration has reached its climax. Asile and the queen sat near the king, and the queen began to speak and welcome the rhetoric, and she suggested that a competition be held for the one who will win marriage to Princess Asile. Asile jumped from her chair and said loudly, "I suggest that the competition will be in shooting, because she knows that she is more skilled than them in the game." In the castle square, the 3 contestants began to throw arrows, but only one goal was hit. Asile advanced to participate in the competition, hit the first goal, hit the second goal, and when she reached the 3rd goal that hit the 3rd contestant, she stood up and attracted the bow with all its strength, and her mother screams not to do, so she released the arrow and hit the goal with all accuracy. Her mother took her mother and slapped her. The princes, rulers, and those present were frozen in their place, but Asile got up holding her cheek, and went to the stable, raised her horse, and went to the forest while she was in a state of extreme anger, and she did not feel the road until she found itself inside the dense forest. And with her horse, he stands quickly in great fear, as a result of the fall of Asile from his back. There was an empty spot of trees, and this empty spot was surrounded by large stones in the form of a large circle, and the center of it was talking to its horse about the reason for its sudden stop. And she saw that her horse was in great fear, so Asile began looking around her in amazement, until she saw a blue light in the form of a small spectrum. She wanted to hold on to him, but he disappeared quickly. A few moments later, he appeared again, away from her again, and then disappeared, and the 3rd time he appeared in different places, as if he was seeing it the way. Asile followed him as she dragged her horses until she reached a small house. She moved to the door and knocked strongly, but no response came to her. She pushed the door and entered, and if you find the house filled with statues and shapes embossed of wood. An old man appeared in front of her, asking about her request and exposure to her sculptures. But Asile does not want to buy, but she is amazed when she saw the old broom while sweeping the earth alone. Asile said to her, "You are a witch." But the old man denied. Asile was not believed, and she went to a crowd in the form of a statue, and the old man left it to touch it. But the crow spoke with Asile. She realized that she was a witch, so she asked the witch to give her a talisman for her mother to change her opinion on her marriage. The witch agreed and requested an interview to serve her. Asile took out a silver necklace and presented it to her. Asile and the witch came out of the house, where the door closed, and opened it, and if at home, its inner shape may change to a charming house with a large amount of fire, and on the wall there are hanging animals and herbs. The witch started making a talisman for Asile and presented her to her in the form of a small cake, and she said to her, "Your mother must eat from her to change her printing with you." Asile came out of the witch's house, and in the eye of an eye, Asile turned to ask about the side effects. But I found that the house disappeared as if it were not before. Asile returned to the house, prepared a royal tray for her queen's mother, put that cake as a main dish, took her to her mother in her room, and asked her to forgive her for her recklessness, and she presented her cake. The queen was happy with her heart, grabbed the spoon, and started eating the cake, although its taste was bad, but Asile insisted that it complete it. The queen began to feel very dizzy and pain in her stomach, so she lied in her bed. Moments later, she started screaming from pain in her stomach, and she covers her. At a moment, she fell from the bed, and Asile rushed to help her rise. He did not take into account. At a moment, the queen's shape began to change into a huge animal under a wet quilt, and started to inflate little by little until the quilt fell from it, and Asile began to scream from the severity of the amazement, and the queen does not know why she was screaming. She started swaying and falling in the room due to its large size, looking for a mirror to look at what happened to her. She found the mirror, and when she looked at her face, the shocking surprise was, she turned into a large bear. She fell from the shock, and she screams and helps her mother stand. In the palace hall, the attendees began to fight with the king not to respond to their request, and at a moment he heard the screams of Asile, so he asked the guards and the attendees to follow him to the room. On the way, he smelled the smell of the bear, the queen, and he said to his guards to bring him with his axe. Asile heard the king's approach to the guards to the room, and helped her mother to get up and get out of the room in order to escape to find a solution to this problem. They went out from a back door to the palace and ran towards the forest. The king arrived with his guards to the room, opened the door, and found the room shattered from the inside, as if there was a huge monster that did this. In the forest, Asile and the bear began to search for the witch's house, but there is no effect. He did not do so. After a long search, Asile found the way to the witch's hut. After their arrival, nothing at home found a great deal, and near it there is a table with 4 bottles. Asile approached him and grabbed one of the bottles and emptied her in fate, so the face of the witch appeared in the form of a ghost, and I told her, if she wants to remove the curse, she must memorize these words: describing the souls and forcing thoughts. The ghost disappeared. Asile began to scream and empty the rest of the bottles, but without feasibility, until it exploded. Were it not for her mother's body that he would have had her right, she would have been infected. The rain began to fall, and Asile sat looking at her mother in sadness, resentment, and regret, while her mother slept from the sadness of her condition. In the early morning, the mother got up and prepared a table with the grapes of the forest, and called on Asile to share breakfast. But Asile told her that the grapes were toxic, and I took it into a river in which many of the souls are running, and she started learning her mother to fish. And for the first time, I felt understanding. Inside the forest, Aseel and her mother began looking again for any trace of the witch until they arrived at a ruined village and destroyed homes. They entered to explore the place, and after a moment, Aseel fell into a hole, and her mother started the bear to help her, but without feasibility because the hole was deep. Aseel began looking for a way out, and if she coincides with a large and brutal bear, he has a closed eye because of his fight with one of the bears, and his body is huge. Aseel struggled to escape from him, and she climbed on a rock, but she followed her, and her mother, the bear, extends her hand to hold her. After a moment, she jumped to her mother's hand and caught her and fled together to the forest. Aseel sat thinking about what the witch and the true meaning of the words said, and she remembered that she teared a carpet of silk that the queen was sewing her. She caught her mother's hand and said to her, "I think I found the solution." They went to the castle and entered completely from one of the hidden doors until they reached the reception hall, where the discussions on the marriage plan were still ongoing. Aseel entered first and stood in the midst of the crowds and said with a loud voice, "O great rulers, I discussed my engagement with my mother's mother, and we reached a solution, which is..." In a moment, Aseel noticed her mother saying to her words by reference to her hands, and she continued saying, "The solution is to let the rising young people search for his life partner himself." The cries of the princes came to agree to their decision. The rulers retreated and called them to celebrate within the warehouse of drinks for the ruler. Aseel entered with her mother to the room, but the father, smelled the same smell of the bear, followed the smell until he entered the room, and was shocked by the scene. He grabbed the axe in his hand, but Aseel stood in front of him and shouted, "She is my mother!" But he did not believe it. He started a fight with the bear, the queen, and dropped it to the ground and ran abroad. All those present heard him, and the king began to scream at the guards to bring dogs and weapons in order to hold the bear. And I am running with her mother outside the palace. And they penetrated into the forest, and the king follows them with the guards and dogs. Aseel began running with her mother the bear to the place of the witch, and upon their arrival she was surprised by the bear from which they escaped standing as if he was waiting for them. He rushed towards Aseel, but her mother was on the lookout, so she began to bite and hit him, but he was strong. However, she did not give in to the defense of Aseel. At that moment, the king and the guards arrived, and Aseel, screaming, had to help her because she was his wife, and that she was the reason for her transformation of this form. He set out with his axe towards the bear, but put it on the ground with one blow. The queen, angered the bear, jumped on the huge bear and began to hit him until a large rock fell on him and died after her. His soul appeared in the form of a ghost, and she thanked Aseel and her mother because they saved him from the curse of the witch. Aseel grabbed the torn carpet and sewed her and put her on her mother, but without viability. She approached her and embraced her and cried about what happened to her mother because of her recklessness, and tears are flourishing from her cheeks. At a moment, she felt a loving hand that touches her red hair gently. Her mother returned to her natural form after great suffering.